Advancing your career is actually a transformational process. You need to be ready to reinvent yourself at a different level, almost at every level. Whatever you do very well before may not be the thing will make you successful in your next chapter.
She has a career that has spanned industry giants like Foxconn, Apple, and Google X. Helen has been at the forefront of global supply chain innovation, spearheading initiatives for iconic products that all of us are aware of, like Apple's first generation iPhone, Google's self-driving car. She was also called the procurement queen of moonshots at Google, which is a very impressive achievement. And she was also the CEO of W Consulting Group, where she advised businesses on growth strategies and helped scale supply chain operations globally. So beyond her corporate achievements, Helen is the founder and CEO of Oceanside Perspective. It's a nonprofit dedicated to fostering leadership, innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. She empowers the next generations with education, mentorship, technology, and essential soft development skills. Additionally, she's also a professor at UCSD's Rady School of Management. So she teaches emotional intelligence and innovation, combining her industry expertise with a lifelong passion for learning and inspiring others. So Helen, this is my introduction of you based on everything that I've heard and read online. And I'm sure I've only scratched the surface. So would you like to introduce yourselves to our audience here?
I would say this, especially relevant to today's context. I'm a supply chain professional, and I'm also a curious problem solver. And I'm a lifelong learner, passionate about teaching, soft skills, and developing emotional intelligence.
That was beautifully done. I hope we all learned a little about how to highlight ourselves and our passions in such a short manner from Helen. So with that, let us dive into some fun questions first. So how do you typically start your day?
Oh, I love coffee, so I start my day with an oatmeal latte, no negotiation, but also trying to catch up what's going on with the world. So I read the news, the global news, the first thing with my coffee, and that helps me to start something like a big picture before I start really have to dive into a daily challenge.
Mm-hmm. That is great to hear, and a lot of us can relate to that, I guess. So since you mentioned you like global perspectives and immersing yourself in the news, I want to go a little bit deeper into that. So where is your hometown and what role does it play in your life today?
Yeah, so Shanghai, China is my hometown. That's where I come from. And I view Shanghai as a city that blends a rich history with cutting edge technology. Yeah. So growing up, coming from there, it brings me this perspective that diversity as well as everything could come work together with different perspective from either culture or generation.
And what inspired you to come all the way across the globe and study abroad? And at what age did you take the step?
Yeah, so life is a journey. Staying at home obviously is very comfortable and safe, but I think the curiosity to just explore the world take me to the US, and I came here in my early 20s.
Right. And if you could have dinner with anyone from the history or present, who would it be?
I would love to have the chance to have dinner with my father, who passed away in 2019. I would like to say goodbye to him, but more importantly, to thank him for giving me a beautiful life, always protecting me, as well as empower me to pursue my dream far away from home.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear how your roots and your culture have played such a big part in where you are today. And with that, let's walk through your career path a little more, and most importantly, gain an understanding of the field of supply chain and operations for our students here and what it takes to make it there. So can you share a little bit more about what supply chain operations is?
Yeah, it can be a very complicated topic, so I could spend hours trying to explaining it, but that's not a purpose. So if I pick the simplest version to explain what supply chain is, that think of supply chain as a long and winding river. And so you have the raw material coming from all the way upstream, flowing towards to the downstream, which is a finished good. And everything along the way, that's all kinds of business. but connecting your partner upstream with your partner downstream as a network connected through transportation or logistic. So that's sort of the simple way of thinking about supply chain. But I would love to call it more of a value supply chain, because fundamentally at the heart of supply chain is creating value. And every layer of supply chain adds a value to its system. So I think that's the thing that people oftentimes forget, is the value creation is the most important thing throughout the supply chain.
Right. So supply chain is like this integral web that links every aspect of a business together, from like where it's originating to all the way to the consumer, is what I gather. So I mentioned earlier that Helen was dubbed the procurement queen of moonshots. Can you maybe explain to us a little bit of what procurement is?
Yeah, so procurement is definitely part of supply chain, but procurement more focusing on the outsourced part of supply chain. So if you imagine a manufacturing, that I'm buying all my raw material, all my equipment, and the things that needs to run into my product as a part of outsourcing. So procurement is really focusing on that. And in contrast, that you would also have supply chain operation, for example. Supply chain operation is more focusing whatever you're producing in-house. Like if I have my in-house manufacturing, that's what operation is focusing on. But all of those are part of supply chain, depends on is that outsourced or that in-house. And furthermore, procurement actually have two categories. One called direct procurement, which is directly sourcing and related to all the material, things that you need, services you needed to produce your product. So directly making the product. The indirect procurement is all the things enable the product making, which can be infrastructure, the facility, the manufacturing, the building, and things like that.
Yeah, so this is like cooking in my family. So my dad is procurement. He goes to the grocery, gets all of the things we need, and the pans and pots would be indirect, and the vegetables and ingredients and maybe instant noodles would be direct. Am I kind of getting it right?
Even pots, I think it's direct in a way. But let's say utility might be indirect.
Ah, got it. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
So what sparked your interest in supply chain and operations?
Yeah, so I sparked the interest in supply chain in a very transformational period of time. So when China, I think, joined the WTO in 2001, I joined the Foxconn in 2003. And so I witnessed the whole shift from in-housing supply chain to outsourcing and offshoring, as well as the rapid growth of China become a hub of supply chain. So that's where I kind of started working in supply chain. And I see how magical this could be, that you enable everybody to work on something that outside of your own kind of facility.
Yeah, it must have been great to start this career, the brink of that global transition.
Actually, my last project at Foxconn was to take over Apple's Sacramento facility, which is their last manufacturing facility, so enable Apple fully outsource their supply chain.
Oh, wow. That is very impressive. Maybe on that note, can you elaborate a little bit more about your roles in Foxconn, Apple, Google, and how you just jumped from these companies?
So how many of you know Foxconn in this room? Okay. If you are part of supply chain, I think it's almost inevitable. You'll get to know Foxconn to some degree. So Foxconn has been and still the largest consumer electronic manufacturer in the world. So 2/3 of electronic devices are produced by them globally. And so as a head of procurement at Foxconn, that my responsibility is really first of managing the supply forecast, because contract manufacturer, right? So they have their manufacturing planning going on, the production going on. So my job as procurement, as I mentioned earlier, the director procurement is enable the production. So my job is really doing all the supply forecasting, as well as inventory management, also cost control. And contract manufacturer has a low profit margin. So in a very thin margin business like contract manufacturing, cost control to protect the bottom line is super important. So my team manages up to 70% of the total cost.
Oh, wow.
So that job actually taught me that how important that company bottom line is.
Right.
And then I guess the next question is my role at Apple.
Yeah.
Okay, so I joined Apple 2005, and I was a part of the first iPhone team. We launched the first iPhone in 2007. So the mission initially for that, because Apple before the iPhone era is still a niche, like Mac computer player, but iPhone has changed the company drastically. So our initial mission was really trying to scale up the global production to produce enough to meet the market needs. It didn't take too long. We realized the bottleneck, instead of just capacity, is actually become a technology. Like how do you scale up new technology quickly enough at the speed, at the cost, at the capacity we needed, as well as the flexibility required, for that consumer electronic market. So the second phase was really that where I started expanding my role, then I more started working on, let's say, a joint development and a manufacturing partnership. To start looking for technology players, technology leaders, manufacturing partners to formulate a meaningful relationship with them to enable Apple to grow.
Right.
That was the second phase. The third phase was really actually coming that we realized that the technology available in the market is not good enough, advanced enough to making Apple product. So I started growing my role into partnering with technology players that take, let's say, a lab innovation to a mass production.
Okay.
And looking into the technology 5 to 10 years out to enable Apple's future product.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting journey because every day you keep changing. Every year I would say that our mission is a little bit evolved because the company grows so fast. And my last job, corporate job, was actually at a Google X. That Google X is what we call a moonshot factory. So it has two words, moonshot and factory, right? So Google X's mission, we really tackle those project and ideas and was never touched by other people before or was not able to solved by other players in the market. An example would be we were one of the first starting with Google Glass, which is a smart glass that a lot of people start catching up now. But for me, it was a history, like so many years ago when I was still at Google. Another project is the self-driving car, and Google X was the first one to start that. And now, when we started, nobody believed that was such a thing. Now everybody is into that. So that's just like how ambitious, bold ideas and way advanced that are we trying to tackle. So my mission as a supply chain person, right, you wonder what do you play over there? My mission was to establish a team and create a framework that you're able to investigate those ideas, the bold ideas that may have a chance to become next $1 billion business. How do you actually commercialize it with the scale that you need for the supply chain capacity we were talking about earlier? But the number one mission was actually to fail those ideas. The earlier you can fail them, the more you can fail, the better. Because then you focus your energy working on the idea would become more transformable in the future, right? So that was how I got my title as a queen of procurement in the moonshot factory. Sounds very futuristic. So if I were to summarize my role, evolved and grow in those industry leaders like Foxconn, they're very much focusing on cost control and bottom line protection, goes to Apple is really about scale innovative ideas. And then Google X was more about how do you actually screening the ideas and then enable those very ambitious ideas to become commercialization possible. So in my mind is my experience informed me that everything is possible in supply chain if your vision, strategy, and execution works together cohesively as a system.
Right. Yeah, it's so fascinating to see how you pull multiple levers within this single field to bring an idea to life and then make it even bigger. Like thinking that supply chain was so integral to launching a product that most of us in this room are using today, like the iPhone, is just something that doesn't cross our minds every day. And it's so like lovely to hear that and realize that. Yeah. So could you share a negotiation story that you worked on, a little bit more specific in any one of your roles that would resonate with our young professionals here in this room?
I would like to make a deal with you.
Okay.
I would share one of my favorite negotiation story on a condition that if you were to tell us from this story, how does emotional intelligence play a role?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So imagine yourself that make your very first trip to Italy and get yourself lost in the middle of Florence and being tasked to negotiate a mission-driven project. If you don't close the negotiation, don't come back. That was the goal actually I set for myself, that I must be able to manage that negotiation. So one of my favorite and memorable negotiation story was actually happened at Apple. And then I was tasked to sourcing and procure the stone going to Apple Park, which is the current headquarters of Apple. And they opened that facility about 2017, I think, April 2017. So what happened was our chief designer, Johnny Ive, has decided to, with all the samples showing the demos, so he picked one of particular stone coming from Florence, that particular region. And also it actually came from one particular mountain. Right. So, in supply chain, we talk a lot about single source. I think in this particular case, it's sole sourced, right? And then Apple Park is a very special project because it's kind of the last project envisioned by Steve Jobs. So if you're a part of Apple, you wanted to make sure that you do everything you could to realize his vision, especially after he passed away. And so the negotiation was for the stone. And then what's challenging could be, okay, the pricing of the stone, the quantity of the stone, because a large quantity, the quality of the stone, the lead time, how much time do we have, and all of that. But most importantly is this particular negotiation, you're talking about, you're going to see a supplier with no competition. So I got myself on a plane and then I landed in Florence. It's planned as a week trip, 4 or 5 days. The first 3 days, I visited a couple of suppliers within the region, all the stone suppliers. And then I kind of get myself familiar with their process, and I understand, how they manufacturing or whatever harvested their stone, and maybe a quote with similar amount of stone that I'm wanted to procure. So I was preparing this because my boss supposed to land the day before I meet with the supplier. But the day before, he called me. He said I have to cancel my trip because of last minute emergency, which happens a lot in supply chain. So I end up with myself and a huge negotiation. So the next day morning, 7 a.m., the supplier sent a black limousine, picked me up from the hotel. So I met with the vice president of business development in their office, and a very typical Italy guy. And then so he picked me up and take me to the office to one of the top floor, a boardroom with a huge, like stunning view of Florence. So and then before I even be able to open my bag, pull on my computer, and he said, "Helen, welcome. And I know that you have met with all of our competitors. I know who you met, where you met with them. And by the way, I even have the quotation they sent it to you.
Oh my God.
Do you want me to print it out for you?" And then I was like, I was stunned. I was just like, okay, I haven't even got a chance to sit down in my chair, you know. And then so he continued, and he said, well, you know, even though we are competitors, but we're also family. So don't ever thinking about you could use their price to ask me to lower my price. And he said, we love your business, we love working with Apple, but we also prepare to walk away from this deal entirely if necessary. That's how we conduct our business. So I was trying to stay calm, you know. My boss was not there. I'm like, okay, must be a trap, you know. What happened is I just happened to be here. So I looked at him. I said, well, good morning. I said, is that possible that you could take me, you know, give a tour of your company? He said, sure. So we spent the rest of the morning in their office, floor by floor. And then I met with their designer, their engineer, and I also happened to run into the owner, the wife of the owner of the entire company. And then, after that, I said, I'm hungry. Can you take me to lunch? So he took me to a local restaurant, very charming Italian restaurant. And then they offered me wine. I was like, okay, you know, that's not typical. I'm not supposed to drink any wine, you know, during my working hour. But since I don't have anything else, maybe I just enjoy the wine. So I took the wine. And throughout the lunchtime, I tried not to. I tried everything possible to avoid talking about stone. I don't even want to look at the stone. I don't know what I'm going to do in the afternoon, but I just want to have a good time. So we chatted about our friends in the architecture company who lead to this introduction. And then we chatted about a family, the kids, you know, and I said, I want a latte. Do you have a latte? And he said, oh, we don't drink latte here. We only have espresso. And then so the restaurant actually went above and beyond, made me a latte. So it's all fun. So by the time we get back to the office in the afternoon, back to the boardroom, I can clearly see that there's increasing level of anxiety with him. And then I can also see that the air was shifted in the boardroom. So we went back there and I said, well, now is the time to talk about business. And let me properly introduce myself. And I said, I had a lot of experience in supply chain. You probably also heard of my reputation as a negotiator. However, I said, I'm very good at consumer electronics product, but I don't know stone that much. And I said, the only reason that I have spent a few days with your friends, with your family here, is because I wanted to be educated. I wanted to be very respectful of your time. By the time we get to this room, then I know what I'm talking about. I said, would you mind to spend some time, just let me know. What do you think about this project? What are some of the top challenges that you're facing? What is the priority for your company? So I listened to him for 45 minutes. And then around 2 p.m., the boardroom door opened. The owner of the company and his wife came in. So they gave me a big hug, welcomed me, you know, come to visit them. And then they even offered, say, well, today is actually the owner's 80 years birthday. And we're going to have a birthday party at the top roof, roof garden at 5 p.m. So I look at the clock, I'm like, it's 2 p.m. right now. Okay, so after they left, I switched. Remember, it's a boardroom, a huge table in between me and him. I switched to the same side, I sit next to him. And I said, let's talk. So before 5 p.m., I was able to get most of the things that I intended on my list. So we successfully closed the negotiation, and we handshaked, we made a deal. To avoid the conflict of interest, which is also a big ethic deal in supply chain, especially as a negotiation process. And so I did not go to the party, unfortunately. I love to be there, but I did not go there. But however, I immersed myself in the center of Florence as a tourist. I was finally feel like I can be a tourist now. It's my first time here. I wanted to know the city. I treated myself with a very delicious meal and celebrating not only the success of the negotiation, but as well as a supply chain professional, all the adventure and surprises on the experience that job has bring me. So that was my negotiation story. So back to you. What do you think?
Okay, before I say my thoughts, I just want to comment. This sounds straight out of like a James Bond movie or Greek mythology. That was a fascinating story. But yeah, I do see a lot of key elements of emotional intelligence in what you just said. First, the time you spent to get to know the culture. I think a lot of empathy, a lot of active listening. And also the fact that you notice that people in this region are very close knit, value their friends and family a lot, and they tend to be less mercenary in some sense. So they are more, they're a group, and you as a single person can't really like, I guess, poke a hole in that fort. So you have to be one of them to actually even manage to get on their side. So, and the fact that you were patient throughout the entire process, you did not just straight up talk business, talk numbers. You spent time getting to know them. That I think shows a lot of like emotional intelligence and shows the need for emotional intelligence as well, especially cultural awareness in situations like this. So I hope I've gotten that right.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a lot of key elements of, how the reality of negotiation happen and how the nature of a supply chain, because you have a lot of more unknowns versus knowns that you have. And then negotiation, is important when you get your number right, your strategy right. But I think the emotional intelligence part of it, for example, how do you build a trust? How do you find out the motivation for them to work with you? As well as part of the reason I was buying my time, but I was also try to get familiar with their company. And then actually after the negotiation, we became friends. And he actually told me, the few hours you toured in our office floor by floor, you know how much peer pressure I got from my peer because they wanted to work with you and they want to close the deal.
Uh-huh.
So that's actually what brought, because I met with the wife of the owner, and the owner was actually a fan of Apple. That's why he wanted to come in to handshake with me, make sure that. So it was all beautiful story. So I would say negotiation, as much as your, hard number calculation, everything is important. Emotional intelligence normally is the secret. You either make it or break it.
Yeah, we got a great deal of insights and advice today that it's not just about the technical details and the numbers, but also a lot about the people aspect of it. I think with that, I want to ask a little bit more about how your background and experience in supply chain, such as many such wonderful stories I'm sure you have, helped you to guide startups when you were in W Consulting and SMEs as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I'm a person that I believe that supply chain philosophy applies to everything. Because if there is a supply and demand, if there is such a relationship, there is a supply chain. And if you're thinking about there's a reason for a business to exist, it doesn't matter what type of business. It's because there's a needs. Because there's a needs in the market, because there's a demand. Because there's a demand, therefore you have a way to supply it, right? Therefore you have a business to exist. So my way of advising companies, every business play a role in supply chain system. And also my experience have designed a dynamic supply chain system, especially the experience at Apple and Google when you created from nothing to something, and that helped me. The last point I was thinking about, because the ability to predict the future trend, because supply chain is a very complex system. So all the big environment, whether it's economic, geopolitical, trade of environment, all matters to supply chain. So the more that you will aware and be able to predict the future trend, that helps. So my way of advising the company, whether it's startup, mid-size company, is looking to the future. How do you grow from where you are?
Got it. Got it. And then could you maybe tell us more about future trends or current trends in supply chain, since you touched on that?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing is inevitable because of the ongoing trade war. That's kind of the immediate thing you have to worry about. We are about to get a new president, right, in just few months. So I think that's critical to understand in that dynamic what that really means. And I think because the trade condition, the tariff situation, whether you're a friend, you're an enemy, it's all going to change a lot of things, which is also in a broader bracket is geopolitical, which compared to when I just, you asked me how I started my supply chain profession, that was when the free trade is a norm. Now is not. Now trade war is in the background, so geopolitical and trade war definitely it got to be on the top of the list. I think other things is technology evolution. Oh my gosh, it's just the speed and the magnitude of technology evolution. I think we all have to watch it. So most of the time you don't know what that means until it really happened, but I say you have to be, very very smart about where technology coming from. Don't ever underestimate. I think the last thing is probably climate change. Climate change is because supply chain is global, and there's a lot of risk associated with nature disaster and things like that. So let's say if you wanted to invest somewhere to expand your supply chain, where should that be? So all above actually play an important role to this.
How this field is very multifaceted. There's like politics, there's emotional intelligence, technology, numbers, environment. Maybe in terms of technology, any salient trends that you can recall from your time in the industry that kind of took you by shock or took the entire supply chain industry by storm?
I don't have, because I'm in the tech industry. So for me, it's like I embrace technology a lot. I believe technology innovation improve the quality of people, right? Our life. So I'm always very curious about, what's the future technology, what's the trend. But there's a lot of examples about how technology coming all of a sudden taking over business. They never be able to, come back to it. One example would be, the iPhone. Right? And do you still remember before iPhone? I mean, I don't know about this cohort, but before I mean, the phone with the button, right? I mean, it could take overnight, just like a technology players coming over, taking over the market. So I remember in the past, maybe what BlackBerry, Nokia, yeah, those type of thing. Another example could be like semiconductor industry is also very very tough industry, very critical. If you don't watch your technology trend, you're probably being quickly. An example would be, I'm still wondering where Intel is. Right, so yeah, so those are the things that you might be working for those companies. You might be within the supply chain of those technology evolution. Just be very very curious. I would say you don't rule it out before you even understand it. I think what people made a mistake is was thinking about, oh, smart phone is not going to make a mainstream. That's why they ignored it. But if you stay very curious, you probably have a different outcome.
So in this field, a supply chain professional must always be alert of any new trend that is coming their way, any new news, not just technology, but also globally.
Yeah, one thing is because as a supply chain professional, you have to work with your technical cross-functional team. So like, especially for me that in the technology industry, we have to decide what technology we design into our product, right? What technology we utilize as a manufacturing technology platform. So all of this is part of your sourcing out of, unless you develop in-house. Otherwise, it's part of procurement mission to make it right.
Understood. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing all of this about the supply chain industry. I want to pivot a little to your current business, which is Oceanside Perspective. So as far as I know, it focuses on developing soft skills for future talent. Could you share a little bit more about the impact your organization has had and the values it promotes?
Career advancement actually require both hard skill and soft skill, right? And hard skill is very obvious. Where do you acquire your hard skill? For example, a program, a university, a training, right? So you can get a degree to demonstrate I have acquired this piece of hard skills. And a hard skill, usually you also have a timeline. It's like, okay, this is 4-year program, this is 2-year program. I'm taking this MBA, I'm taking this MSBA, right? But how do you learn soft skill? It's not a very clear answer. There's no very clear infrastructure or process or structured learning for soft skill. This is where I founded Oceanside Perspective, because I feel like I have this famous sentence that I always use is like, hard skill get you the job and soft skill take you to the top. So you need hard skills in order to apply and being hired as maybe an entry level or maybe hard skill centric position. But in order for you to move, to advance your career, soft skill become more and more critical. So Oceanside Perspective was founded in the hope that we could help people to acquire soft skills. And we have very ambitious plan to the future, but the very first step is really to create educational content that from authentic stories being told by leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators that we hope to inspire the future generation to learn from the best.
Yeah, I'm so glad all of us have this collection of resources available to Oceanside Perspective to learn more about the soft skills needed. But I would like you maybe to highlight 3 soft skills and 3 hard skills based on your experience running Oceanside Perspective, as well as your experience teaching the course on emotional intelligence at Rady here.
Yeah, so again, I'm a supply chain person by training, right? So what I'm thinking about is always about what's the input, what's whatever happening, working progress, working process in terms of production, right? Like any kind of production, you have to be very creative thinking about what production really means. And the last piece is output, whatever coming up. So for example, I just received your question. Okay, that's the input. Okay. And then whatever I process here, nobody even knows. I call this a sort of a black box of intelligence. And then whatever I come out to answer your question, that's my output. Right. So I think we all know this word about garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't really manage, regulate, or improve the quality of your thinking, that whatever is going through here is not going to be very high quality, right? So I think the number one critical skills, I think it's a soft skill, is critical thinking. Because that's very important, the information that you're going to receive, how are you going to differentiate what relevant, what not relevant, what's the high quality versus low quality. If that's a piece is taken care of, the next piece I think you're going to work on is really the emotional intelligence part of it, which is how do you actually solving problem? Because emotional intelligence, if you have emotional intelligence, a lot of happy outcome lead out is you successfully solve the problem, the negotiation story that I just told. So how would you, in developing your emotional intelligence to improve the ability to solving complex problems? So that's kind of the second one. The third one, I think, is we are different. We're like a unicorn by ourselves, right? Nobody's built the same. Our experience, our where you come from, the education you have, the community, all the information you receive are different, and you process them differently. So I would say, well, have to know yourself very well. My advice will be understand yourself, understand what you're good at, what you're not good at. How do you navigate yourself into a complex situation like that? Yeah. That's kind of the soft skill land. The hard skill, I would say a few things. One is whatever your major is, just graduate from school is probably not good enough. You have to get a real world experience to practice the skill that you have learned from school. Very important. One is just in theory by concept. The other one is you actually actively utilizing it. You apply whatever you learned into a job. That's super important. So if you tell me you have a hard skill, not only you show me that I have learned somehow, whether it's by self-learning or by degree, and then you also have done something about it. So we need a variety, like very diverse background of talent. So whether you're an engineer, whether you're a business person, whether you're finance, whether you're legal, I actually have all of those people in my team before. Oh, wow. So I think supply chain is a field that anyone can enter into it, but make sure that you show that you have a solid hard skill. And I think the other thing is how we have to learn, constantly learning these days. So learning is never end. So I think your ability to learn is you have to be able to demonstrate that. It's like, how do you learn, things like that. Lastly, technology for sure. Whatever the field you are in, you have to be familiar with technology. Sometimes technology means a tool. Like I'm able to, because school trained me to utilize this tool to do data analytics or whatever that might be. I think that's must have. You don't expect anyone to teach that. You have to learn yourself. And I think second things will be more of watching the technology trend, whatever the field you are in. So I think those are things coming to my mind.
Yeah. So any background, being abreast with global and technological trends, having a continuous learning mindset, as well as developing the soft skills of critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and obviously doing well in your coursework and practically applying them. Yeah. Okay, so there, we've summed it up. I hope you all took notes. So on that note, what litmus test do you recommend for our students here to know whether a career in supply chain is the right step for them or not?
That's a hard question. It's a hard question. You know, I think I could only try to just give a try. I don't think there's no standard answer. There's no golden, answer like that either. So I would say this on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, right? So like how much do you really enjoy to solve and tackle complex problems on a regular basis? How many of you thinking that on a scale 1 to 10, 5?
I think our students are higher than that.
6? 7? 8? Okay, I start seeing some hands. 9? Okay, 10.
Come on, all hands up.
There are a lot of people who don't have hands. So you're below 5? So anyway, I think if you're on the higher spectrum, anywhere 8, 9, 10, I think supply chain might be the right thing for you. If you, people want different things, it's totally fine. I think if you're feel like you're below 5 because you want more of uncertainty, because solving problem dealing with uncertainty all the time, right? That's why there's a problem. If you want a certainty, I'm not sure supply chain is the right thing. The only reason because supply chain is a living system. Every second, every minute we're talking, there's something is happening. Right. So it's always problem. Every day you walk into the company, your office, that you might dealing with different problems. So on a regular basis, it could also be very demanding, that job. Yeah. But if you love it, you enjoy doing that, that's the right thing for you.
Thank you for that answer. Next, I wanted to ask is, are there any maybe local resources here that our students can access to learn more about this field and find out for themselves whether they're passionate about it or not?
So I am not, first of all, Supply Chain Club, I think this is great. I think we should do more of this. Yeah. Right. We should do more of this. I'm only one of so many, kind of in the supply chain field. I also view myself as somewhat different and unconventional. So, I love my experience, but I'm only like a very sample size of one. So I think we should get more, hopefully we get more people to share a different industry. It'd be fascinating. It's just a fascinating industry and in general, and the different company, culture, different industry will bring different nuances of supply chain. I think that's what we can do. Beyond that, I really highly recommend get some internship. Like you have to get your like learning by doing kind of spirit, and you only learn by doing something, not only just on a book, because supply chain can never happen just by reading something. Yeah. So that's another thing. Local resources, I think you can look at the local, biggest employer. We have a few of them here, right? Whether it's technology company, whether it's a bio company, whether it's, if you want to get into supply chain, it doesn't matter what company. As I mentioned, as long as there's supply and demand, there is a company kind of sitting in the middle of supply chain. So it's literally everywhere, including the university. If you're interested, there's a huge supply chain behind the UCSD. Have you ever thought about that? So there's no shortage of opportunity. I think it's just a matter of you broaden your perspective and give it a try.
Yeah, definitely. So what is one thing you wish you knew before you started your career that you think our students might like to know as well?
Advancing your career is actually a transformational process. You need to be ready to reinvent yourself at a different level, almost at every level. Whatever you do very well before may not be the thing will make you successful in your next chapter, whatever the journey you're making. And a tangible example would be that most people get promoted because they do whatever given project so well as an individual contributor. Because you control yourself, you lead yourself, you do it so well, you set such a high expectation for yourself that I wanted to do this perfect. Therefore, you have drive, you have motivation, you have performance. But then when people get promoted to a manager, actually you don't have to do that much because you have a team who actually doing that for you. So what should you do to focus? Reinvent yourself to become a manager to make you successful. And then if one day you become a CEO, you literally don't do anything specifically on a project, on a task, because you have to lead a company to the future. You have to be a vision, right? You have to become the vision of the company. So every step in the way in between is actually reinventing yourself. So feel comfortable about that. Embrace that change as a growth, not a failure.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. So I think I'd like to open up the floor for some any questions that the students may have for Helen. So the question is there a way that we can pick up on signs of people's emotional intelligence better? And how do you improve the skill of emotional intelligence detection in yourself?
Yeah, the very first step for emotional intelligence, self-awareness. And I would say there's a lot of misperception about self-awareness because self-awareness by the name is self-aware. So how much do you know yourself, right? But in order to you really to know yourself, there's actually very different sides or two sides of the coin. One side is you know yourself by kind of reflecting from inside out. It's like, okay, I know myself. I like this. I don't like this. I'm good at this and I'm not good at that, right? But most people missed the other half. The other half is how other people perceive you. So the perspective taking, I would say, as part of the emotional intelligence, self-awareness is the very first step. So if most of your time that you reflecting on self-awareness, got to know yourself, is by yourself, which you missed a huge opportunity to get to know better. There's a phrase called perception is reality. You might intend to do this, but people might receive it very differently. So make sure that that's where your start is. Not only I think, I feel, but also what do you feel? What do you think? So perspective thinking and self-awareness, that would be the first thing I would advise.
What is the thought process behind the naming of your company as Oceanside Perspective?
Yeah, I put a lot of thoughts behind it, although we don't really have a lot of time to talk about it. Number one is because it's kind of like founded in UC San Diego because that's where I am. So San Diego by nature is by the ocean, so Oceanside makes sense. However, there's a deeper meaning because Oceanside Perspective is a platform to learn soft skills. How do we learn soft skills? Where do we learn soft skills? Soft skill is what? Is a human skill. So you have to learn from people. What type of people, right? I think every generation has something to offer. Always the younger generation look up to the older generation want to empower, inspire younger generation. So Oceanside, ocean is also a hope that we have is people will open up to their perspective as deep, as wide as ocean. Therefore, you're able to receive not only share your own perspective as well as see other people's perspective. And then ocean is a wave, right? So it's like every generation is kind of pushing for, the success of, enable the success of future generation. Thanks for asking me for that question.
So our question is, how do you network effectively? What do you prepare, or what sort of guidelines do you set for yourself to effectively communicate to the other person who you are and what you're seeking?
So I will give the simplest answer. Actually straightforward from the name. What is networking? So first of all, if you're networking with someone, you show up in that whatever particular event, it's because you somehow are connected within the same net. So what is that net? If it's, let's say, a supply chain club, maybe supply chain is a common passion that we have and an interest topic we have. If you show up in, I don't know, entrepreneurial club, that might be a sting, right? So there's a reason why you're there, why you meet with that person. So I think focusing on finding a common interest within that net, that got to be something because, things happen for a reason. That's why you're there. But most importantly is you met with someone. That's what I thought when I was young. Is it just only because I don't know that person? If I know more people, I would be very successful. No. So people happen to introduce you, or you went to an industry conference, you know so many people, you collect so many business cards, then what? So networking only happens if there's part of working to somehow interact with that person, somehow collaborate with that person, then make networking really happen. So net is only the very first step. Working is actually where you want to spend most of time to reflect and thinking and create that opportunity to connect and engage with other people. So if you happen to know someone within your network for 5 years, you haven't talked, that's not your networking.
We also have a question on how you balance your personal and professional life as a successful female leader in this industry.
I did not do this very well when I was young, and high tech is very, very demanding, very demanding. I, I I feel like that's one of the hardest place. I have worked for all those companies that you name it. So like all three are actually very demanding. But we love it. So when you love it, when you have passion, that you feel like, okay, all those hours that the people that I work with, I have no regret, right, for the things that I have done. But after, I think I have a daughter. My daughter is actually right here, so I feel I feel pretty bad. Sometimes I talk about this completely not balanced work and life. I probably missed a lot of her school project and birthday and all of that. So anyway, but I tried to do this when she was in high school. And so a few things I think maybe tips that I could offer to parents here. One is when she was in high school, I started taking my executive MBA. So I created an environment that within the office that we had in the house that we study together. Even though both are working, but you're spending time together, right? And then sometimes I feel like, oh, this is so hard, so we're suffering together. What about that? So I think starting from high school, her high school, my position become very senior. So I have the opportunity to assign my team to travel. So I kind of start traveling less because supply chain require like really regular basis travel around the world. But then after I start teaching, after I'm empty nest, I actually feel like there is a way you could do better, is more integrating whatever you do, not only just, so we always talk about work and life, which means work and life is different. So I challenge that. Is there a way you could put work and life together? Therefore, you don't have to pick and choose. That's not easy to do, but in my capacity today, I can actually do it because I love teaching. Teaching is not actually my work, it's probably more of my passion. So where do you put a passion, work or life? Maybe both, right? And then I started my nonprofit, Oceanside Perspective. So, like you got everything aligned all together. So not only I teach this, my students is interested, and then I invited my guest speakers who may be in my network. So now is a working opportunity. Hey, could you come in here to give a talk to my students because you're one of the best of doing that, And then this nonprofit that also gives opportunities, like bring my daughter into this whole nonprofit organization wear multiple hats. So again, creating this like a mother-daughter opportunity to work on something together, right? I'm asking like how many of you actually have like mother-daughter project experience before, or father-son, father-daughter project experience before? If you haven't had a chance, maybe think about it, what that might look like. So the more actually they understand your work, your family, your life, and I think that can be more cohesively integrated together. So you don't have to struggle. There's always a boundary of everything you do.
Okay, so we have folks here from multiple different backgrounds. The specific question is from someone in software engineering who wants to break into supply chain, and they're trying to wonder how they can transition into this field, or what are the first steps they should take to have a better grasp in this field.
Yeah, the best hire that I historically had in those company is a technical background plus like business acumen somehow. So whether like a software engineer took an MBA or a mechanical engineer and an electrical engineer, you sometimes thinking about engineer as a field of expertise, but sometimes it could also be like I'm a lawyer, I'm legal, legal background, and therefore because we need a lot of legal background on negotiation table. We negotiate contract all the time, or a finance background because we crunch a number all the time in order to make sure that we protect the bottom line, right? So supply chain field is in a field actually welcome all different kind of talent. I think software engineer, I would just broaden it to you're engineer to begin with, right? There are some engineer discipline, engineer mindset, engineer way of approaching solving problem has some commonality. So I'm not going to limit myself to just software engineer. I'm just an engineer in general, right? So always focus on those transferable skills that you can bring from whatever your background to whatever the new challenge or the new position, the new industry that you're looking for. Focus on transferable skill. Not put yourself into a box. Say, I'm a hardware engineer, I'm a software engineer, I'm a finance person, I'm an accounting person. What do I do? Anything with supply chain? Everything. Supply chain need every disciplinary area. The other thing is, I just think in software engineer, almost everyone that I wish that a younger generation have a piece that you learn, understand about software. Because supply chain is a very complex system. So the more that you actually be able to utilize systematic thinking, either to automate some process or make it some like optimization is a big topic in supply chain every day, literally. So if you're able to come up with some ideas utilizing a software background, I think that would differentiate you even.
So you're challenging us to define ourselves based on the transferable skills. Like, so instead of saying I'm an engineer, I'm a problem solver, I'm an optimizer.
Yeah, this back to my introduction, right, of myself.
Yeah. Oh, that circles back.
I said I'm a supply chain professional. I'm a curious problem solver, and I'm a lifelong learner, passionate about teaching and developing soft skills.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, Helen. So we'll bring our event to a wrap. And thanks everyone for your questions. I hope this was a lovely sharing session. It was super useful for me, and I'm sure it was for you too.
Thank you so much.